Hey friends, it's John. You are on the JRB Tree Climbing channel, and you're on the playlist, the JRB Ascender Hitch. I'd like to show you what I've been working on. This is the JRB Ascender Hitch that you've learned about earlier on this playlist. I've got it tied in soft bridge mode, but I've got it configured as compact as possible. So I'm just going to refer to this. You know, it's the JRB Ascender. It is the 5-2-3 variant. You're familiar with that. It's in soft bridge mode, but look how small it is. It's tiny, and I was able to accomplish that by taking the bend that we use to connect this cord and moving it up into the upper stage. And so these are two identical hitches. I've been climbing on them using my hitch climbing setup, and I mean the applications for this are numerous. Hitch climbing is just one of them. The most popular is probably this. I'm currently attached to this with a rock climbing harness, and so a saddle hunter might want to use this in a tether configuration so that with one-handed operation they can take slack out, right? And now with my body weight on it, easily remove slack. So we get that one-handed operation, and it's really nice and compact. So how do we accomplish that? So again, you're going to need to be familiar with the JRB Ascender to get started, but this is the beast. This is the 5-2-3 JRB Ascender in soft bridge mode, the way that I tied it previously, with a little bit longer loops at the bottom, which was typical. And you needed a little length here because I needed to put a bend at the bottom to connect this. It's balanced, right? It moves here, and so that's why this is always balanced. But if I want to get it as compact as possible, well, I don't want to have a bend, you know, a knot which joins the two ends of the cord together down here, because we wouldn't want that to be bending around my carabiner. We want to move it somewhere else. Well, where can I move it? Well, the segment with the most linear real estate is this descending leg off of the helix. And so that's effectively what I've done, is I've just relocated the bend to that location. It's still a hunter's bend, but it's a little tricky to tie, and it's important that even after we tie it, you know, and we put some load into this, some slack will appear. We might want to take some slack out of this. In fact, I usually need to. So it's not just a simple, you know, tie, dress, and set. I need to load, inspect, and then usually take a little slack out of here. And I'm glad I took my time to make this video to make that observation. It's important that this upper part of the hitch isn't bound up, that there's a little bit of room here, and it's not constricted, and we could still, if we needed to pull a little slack out of that top stage, we still can. And so I'm going to tie one from scratch, and just for reference, I am using it's 9.5 millimeters on my caliper, and this is Maxim Canyon Elite, and this is sterling 7 millimeter hitch cord in both the red and the tan, or coyote, I think they call it. This red one was tied with 6 feet, and this was tied with only 5 feet. And for those converting, it's about 30 centimeters per foot in the conversion. And so let's build this. Now, this is important, right? I've loaded this. I've been climbing on this for a couple of weeks, and I can still untie this with my finger strength. But this will test your knowledge of the JRB Ascender Hitch and the Hunter's Bend, which I'm untying now. It'll, you know, tying these things in a real compact space is always just a little bit more difficult. It'll test your powers of inspection. Again, I don't untie these knots every time I climb, right? They're on my line for a while. I'll take them off periodically and inspect them, and if my cords are showing excessive signs of wear, I will change them out as per manufacturer recommendations. Okay, so to get started, above and out of your view, I've got a little yardstick here to help me. And so what I have is 2 feet of cord that I'm going to start at that point where 2 feet on the left and 3 feet on the right. And I'll zoom you in a little bit so we can get this detail. Okay, so this is just a review of the JRB Ascender and soft bridge mode to get started. And we're going to make this as compact as possible and try to keep all the slack out of it we can. I'm being kind of aggressive with my, the strength I'm putting into this. So it's 2 upward coils, drop this guy down, and now I'm going to take this line around the back and it will descend through. It'll follow this nail down right there. That's where it will follow. Let's see if I can put that where I won't drop it. That's what I call the lower stage of the JRB Ascender. Again, taking as much slack out as I can. I bring that around to the same side I started, and now I'm going to make 5 coils in the same direction. I started from left to right, which is the Z chirality. I will continue in that fashion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now this is where I want to put my bend, right here on this descending line. But this is just going to kind of get disoriented if I lose sight of it. So what do I do with that? Well, I'm going to go ahead, even though I want to back this out later, I'm going to put in the 2. I'm going to put in that line goes up through 2 of the bottom coils. That just kind of keeps things stable. I'll leave that there, and I'll be backing this out later and following this through to put the bend there. Okay, so now with the bottom portion with this 2-foot tag end, I am going to be forming the bridge in the bottom, but backwards from the original video. And I'll do it in this fashion. I take this and put it through right here, and I'm going to make this a fairly compact coil here. Keep this, I'll put a beaner in there to keep it nice and compact. Around the back. And now where this line would have come through right here, if I were finishing the knot per the original specification, this would come through right here. I am going to take this end through there, under, and through. Get my beaner in there. This is definitely on the varsity side of knot tying. So I completely get it if this is a little bit hard to do. Okay, and now I'm almost there. All I have to do with this tag end is replace this. So I'm going to back this out, and I will follow the path that it left with the other end. So if my pinched fingers were a bend, I'd have it done. And that's what we've got to do. I've got 5, 2, this goes up through 2, and the 3 here. 5, 2, 3 JRB center. Now I've got to tie a really compact hunter's bend here with where my left hand is. So I start with an overhand knot. Keeping that pretty tight. This goes through. So this is the most compact hunter's bend you'll ever tie. Over, over, and chase the tail. Again, you've really got to be an expert at the hunter's bend to pull this off. That's it. Now when I load this, it's going to stretch out. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. I realize I'm working solo tonight in the lab, so, but you know what's going on. I'm just going to get some load on that. You see that stretching out. It's a lot of slack got into the rope just from loading it. Well, we're going to get rid of that. We're going to get rid of that. We'll loosen our hunter's bend. And you might have to do this a couple of times. You know, even though I tied it as compact as I possibly could, some slack's going to go into that, and we're going to work this hunter's bend to get that out. All right, so that's better. Let's zoom back. Give a little bit more real estate. So that's pretty good, but I could climb on that for a day and need to repeat that process. Okay, let's do another one. Let's take this one apart and see it a second time, just because I realize how difficult it is to follow an operation like that. So again, I've been climbing on this guy for dozens of climbs. Still able to break that hunter's bend. And I've tried some other bends. I tried the overhand bend and in some different locations, but I keep coming back to this as my preference. And it's been working real well with my hitch climbing, and you'll be seeing that soon on the other playlist. Okay, so this is going to be a take one video for me, and so let me start with that measurement I had. So I got 2 feet on the left, I've got 3 feet on the right. Lay that over the rope, 2 upward coils, drop it down around the back, down through these 2, being pretty aggressive to get slack out of that. Okay, and this is often confusing. What do I do with this end in the back? Well, remember where you went in the front. You want to repeat it. You want to bring it around and continue coils in the same direction you started the first one. So from left to right across the front, 5. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pass it down across the front and up through 2 bottom coils. And again, I took as much slack out of it as I can. Now, working with the bottom segment, let's get in tight. Okay, we're going to go through this location, through that location. Okay, I'm then going to get this as compact as possible. Excuse me. I'll put my carabiner in there. Goes around the back. Up through the beaner. And I'm going to go through here, under, and out the back. And having the beaner there allows me to get that as much slack out as possible. So I'm close. Now I've just got that impossible hunter's bend to tie. I'm going to pull this strand out through the two and replace it with this. Okay. And I've tried putting the bend here. I just don't like the bend here as much. It's just a little bit more real estate here to work with. You know, I'll keep working at it, but you can see here there's just not as much room in this location as there is here. And so let's pull this one out. And you know, it's kind of difficult. You need 3 hands to keep this from uncoiling, but I manage. Okay. And now I'm going to tie that hunter's bend. Overhand loop. That's my first overhand knot. This goes through, out the back, overlaps with itself, and I call it chasing the tail. Follows that tail through. Now you've got to be pretty good with your hunter's bend to recognize this signature part of the hunter's bend here with the 2 segments in the vertical bound by 2 in the horizontal. I'm very familiar with that. I don't even need to look at the back to know that I've got it right. But you've got to be sure. So I'm not going to load it with my body. Let's just hammer this with my hand. And you can see some slack appearing like magic inside of that thing. And we're just going to work that out. We're just going to take that slack and we're going to this top coil, get everything we can out of it. And we'll tighten up that hunter's bend. And like this descending strand of that actually shoots out this side. So you'll just follow me here as I take that. I can pull that slack now out here. And then out here. So I usually work it that way. I always try to work it off this top strand to just get this as compact as possible. And you might climb on that and it expands a little bit and you got to repeat the process. I'm usually not too concerned if there's, you know, an inch or so, a couple centimeters here between the 2 stages under load. That's no problem. It always seems to break well and hold well. The only times it doesn't hold is if we get too much slack in here. And if we get too much slack, again, I just work that slack out by tightening this top coil and adjusting the top hunter's bend. See if we can get another centimeter out of that. I'm sure I'd get a couple if I put my full body weight on it on a climb. So this knot requires a little bit of dressing. That's about all I can get out of it. But once you've got it set right, you can climb on that. And of course, in a tether application, you've got this great one-handed operation. So I just took that clip back to the edit room and had a couple of details I want to make sure are clear in the inspection process. So the first one is my right hand was a bit in the way when I was tying the portions of the hitch, and I want to point out that when this strand went up, it becomes the center strand of the 3 on the bottom, and it goes under this descending segment. It goes under this line, the one we inserted through, and it goes under this. So it goes under those 3 and then around the back to form this. And again, what we're doing here is we're building on prior knowledge. So if you know how to build the JRB Ascender in soft bridge mode, I recommend having one of those on the line, because then we can do an inspection and know what to look for. I'm well versed in tying this, and it's not Greek to me, and I know it's a complex knot when you're first looking at it. And so I can compare these in symmetric fashion and make sure I've got my 5 coils, and that this descending segment off the top is really just replaced by that nut with a hunter's bend on it. It goes out the back, up through 2 strands, up through 2 strands, up through 2. I'm comparing left and right, out the bottom, and becomes that descending strand. Now, in the regular knot, in this regular variant, if there's slack in this, if we have slack in it, we're able to pull it out through this descending leg. Well, we can't do that, right? We can't do that when there's a hunter's bend in the way. And that's why we had to manage our slack here. And the last point, and I haven't ever done this myself yet, but I'm recognizing, because I've never climbed with this in the dark yet, is, well, once I remove this carabiner, once I remove it, and maybe some slack falls in here in the dark, it might be difficult to locate exactly where these 2 strands are. And so I've considered doing this, and this will be the first time I do it, is I simply take a cable tie and put it through there. Now, I'm not going to make this very tight. It's just going to be loose. Just leave it like that, and leave it on there. And that way, you know, if you're fumbling around in the dark and you're looking for a place to install your carabiner, you can just feel for that cable tie and trace it. Just becomes effectively a bookmark for your carabiner. Okay, again, I realize that this is probably the most complex friction hitch you'll tie, but it really, well, it does things that no other friction hitch can do, and therefore, you know, the complexity in my mind is warranted for the results. So good luck, and give me your comments and feedback, and I'll make sure to answer any questions you have. Thank you.